Javi and Linda share some quality time, expressing their opinions about family and revenge when Javi reaches out to Waya for a healing touch. It's all right here in our review of Gunslinger Spawn number 31 from Image Comics. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Gunslinger Spawn number 31. This issue is written by Todd McFarlane with art by Carlo Barberi, colors by Ivan Nunes, letters by Tom Orzechowski, and the main cover A is drawn by Francesco Mattina. Recapping what happened in the previous issue, issue number 30, Javi and Linda are the strange, odd couple that are on this road trip, and Javi has asked Linda to take him to Gettysburg. She figures out along the trip that he really can't read or drive or do any of the modern things that he should be able to, not realizing that he's from the past, but she takes him anyway. And they stop in this small town because she sees that he's still bleeding from his injuries. So she goes into a pharmacy to get some medical supplies like gauze and band-aids and antiseptic and what have you. Javi gets out and stretches his legs, walks around the town, and he's accosted by a group of bullies who don't like strangers in their town. Now, they don't realize as soon as they go down to a dark alley that they're no match for the gunslinger. Even though he doesn't have his powers, it doesn't matter. He still puts them down pretty readily. And then when he goes back to the car and to decide to drive away, he says, "Stop, real quick, I need to see something." And he recognizes the storefront to a bank, which is owned by the McKinnons. That brings us to Gunslinger Spawn number 31. So back in the hotel room, Javi and Linda share some details about their lives and as far as their attitudes about family and revenge. And we start off with a very lengthy gun battle fight where Javi's remembering when he first encountered, or at least tried to stop and the McKinnons and put them down and kill all of them for killing his sister. But that gunfight led into a trap in a hotel above a saloon, and he was gunned down. And so the first part of the issue is him narrating his feelings about his sister and revenge, while in the panels we see visually the whole scenario playing out where he was cornered, trapped, and gunned down by the McKinnons. Afterwards, Linda takes Javi to go see Waya, the shaman, because his wounds aren't healing as fast or as much as they should. Waya applies some magical power to the wounds, and that seems to set Javi on the right path to recovery. But during the conversation, Waya makes it known that Taylor has left and taken off, and that drives Javi, and makes him angry. And he says, "Well, wait a minute, why did I left Taylor in your care? He was sick, he was injured, he's got nowhere to go. He was your responsibility." And Waya's like, nope, he was your responsibility. You just dumped him on me, and he can make his own choices. And there we are. So now, not only is Javi physically hurt and not in the best place possible, now he's got the added burden of regret and realizing that Taylor's out there by himself, still not well and possibly in a bad place. A little bit later, Linda and Javi are back at the hotel room, and they're talking about how far they would go and how much would they do when it came to revenge for their family members if one of them had been hurt. Even if they didn't really love them or the relationship was not good, then they were still family. How far would you go for revenge? Linda said, "Well, I'd let the courts handle it, and that's about as far as I would go." And Javi says basically, "Well, that's the difference between you and me. I would handle it myself and probably go all the way and cross the line." So that's where the issue ends, as now Javi is just packing up his gear, and he and Linda pay a visit to the McKinnon Bank. And that's where we leave off. Switching gears to talk about the technical aspects, this is effectively a character piece. There's not a whole lot of movement on the plot. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this is all about getting inside Javi's head, understanding the motivations of why he's on this revenge quest, what's driving him, particularly the death of his sister, and informing how far he's willing to go and how much he's willing to kill, essentially, to get revenge for his sister. So you really get inside his mindset and his attitudes, and that also plays into Linda, who's along for the ride, but maybe is not at the same level of commitment. So let's pick on the art a little bit, and I mean that in a pleasant way, because Carlo Barberi's artwork is fantastic. You couldn't ask for a better pencil or an inker to bring Javi to life. The gunfight is energetic and hard-hitting and even a little bit gory, because there is some blood and there's body parts that are getting impacted by bullets left and right, so it's really a hard-hitting action scene. But even the quiet and the still moments where it's just Javi and Linda talking with each other, those moments are still also dramatic and hard-hitting, but for different reasons. So Barberi is really a grade A pick for this title. Switching over to pacing and structure, the pacing is on point. Even though if you peel back the layers and look at the overall structure of this comic, it's effectively just 3 conversations and 1 action set piece that's really a flashback. So from a plot and movement perspective, there's not a whole lot going on. But the pacing of each scene is excellent. The transitions from one to the other are excellent, and you're engaged all the way through. So from that character development and the ups and downs and ebb and flow of the comic to keep you engaged, this is really a solid comic. On the other side of it, though, the plot is definitely thin. I mean, if you think about it, it's just 3 conversations and a action-packed flashback, but that's all there is to it. So in the larger picture of the quest for Javi to get revenge on the McKinnons, it doesn't move forward a whole heck of a lot. So that brings us to what is the central theme of this comic. Right from the get-go, it's all about asking, and for each individual, answering the question of how far would you go and what would you do if somebody hurt somebody in your family, whether you love that family member or not. The blood is thicker than water concept comes through loud and clear. McFarlane establishes that question right from the get-go with Javi's quest, and he holds on to it and reinforces it all the way through. Then we consider where this comic fits in the larger Spawn verse and how it juxtaposes it with everything else. Javi is still powerless as a result of the Heaven-Hell War and Nyx's ascension to the throne of Hell, but that's about it. He's pretty much on his revenge quest with Linda and going down this path, even though he is definitely taking physical damage, and that's an annoyance that sticks with him. But as far as the grander scheme of the events of the dead zones encompassing the entire planet, it's a non-issue here. This is all about Javi's revenge quest, and whether he has powers or not is almost incidental. Final thoughts. What do we think about Gunslinger Spawn number 31? We really get into the heart and the mind of Javi as Linda helps him get healing and supplies for the next step of his revenge quest. So it's a very strong character piece if you want to know what Javi's all about. McFarlane does a solid job sticking to that central theme of asking and answering the question, what would you do if somebody hurt your family? And Barberi's art is just phenomenal. On the downside of that, the plot doesn't move forward a whole heck of a lot. So you basically get 3 conversations and an action set piece that's a flashback. So if you're looking to kind of keep things moving along in the greater arc, it barely moves an inch or 2. Therefore, we're going to give Gunslinger Spawn number 31 a 7.8 out of 10. And it's only as low as it is because it really just doesn't do much for the arc other than inform you about Javi's motivations. But at this point, you kind of already know that if you've been following along in the series. It's well done. It's just not as necessary as it could be. So what do you think about Gunslinger Spawn? Are you following the series or just the main Spawn title? Are you curious to see where this overlaps with all the other titles, or just reading it as a curiosity? I want to know your thoughts about Javi, Gunslinger Spawn, and where it fits into the greater Spawn verse. Otherwise, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned through the outro for the next review.